And I don't even have to tell you that the pros pretend. I'm broke, so I can't rap about material things. You can tell the nice rap, dirty, eat everything. Right, left, right, left, right, left. In the band was the zone. Right, step, right, left, right, step. In the band was the zone. Right, left, right, left, right, left. In the band was the zone. Right, step, right, left.
And that was JP from the HP. The band marches on. That was a live performance. And as I ended the last episode, he certifiably killed that shit. So that was our record release party. So before I move forward in the timeline, I did want to go back a little bit, reiterating some things from the previous episode during the making of the Stereo Killaz End of the Beginning album. I did mention how I felt like Adam, who at the time was MCIQ, was starting to feel like he was going to get better than me, where I really felt like, oh man, this dude's giving me a run for my money right now. I need to step my game up. And the song that really stands out when I think about that is a song that we ended up putting on that album called Hip Hop to Me. This song right here, man, he was really pouring out his soul, and it just made me feel like I had to step my game up.
I was just a white kid growing up in the burbs, infatuated with rapping, the way they twisted their words. Kept my Walkman with me 24/7, and volume turned up all the way, sounds deafening. Lessons in every CD that I own, alone in my home with my headphones on, in the zone, ready to die was like an escape. Just give me the beat, boys, and let the music take me away. Frustrated with the masquerade, recognize that the day-to-day 9 to 5 wasn't my way. Stay up late and write bars with ease on my report card. Parents asking me why I'm off to a slow start. I felt as if no one was there for me. Writing verses became my own version of personal therapy. I look around now, music's all that I see. Let me tell you really how much this hip-hop means to me. Hip-hop to me is more than smoking blunts and getting high. Writing it just something I gotta do to survive. And to me this is more than the flossing and the ice. Hip-hop is the only thing I had left in my life. Hip-hop to me is more than smoking blunts and getting high. Writing is just something I gotta do to survive. And
that shit just sounds super inspiring, right? And this is the earliest track that I can really think of, or one of the earliest tracks, where I was like, oh man, this dude is on something like a bit deeper, you know what I mean? Like, definitely deeper than where I was going with it, and just, you know, showed me that you could be vulnerable, and having that vulnerability, you know, that really made a difference in how you felt the song. It wasn't just about, like, bars or anything like that. It's like, man, put some emotion in it, you know, try to, you know, get your pain through that track and everything like that. And that's, you know, that's just his first verse. So when he comes in with the second verse, man, oh man.
Hip-hop is the only thing I have left in my life. It seems that writing verses is the only thing I can rely on. Parents call me a failure, my friends say I'm a high on. Try on to keep the heart of a lion, but there's a lot of hard knocks on this road to Zion. Beats I'm on, treat them like my 9 to 5. Behind the 808's the only way I feel alive. Jive talk, writing verses on the sidewalk as I walk to get my head straight. Don't talk much, I'm a head case. Carry my mother's picture in my wallet and call it a dead weight. Motivate to get my...
See, when you hear that bar, you may not know, like, the significance of that bar, but his mom died when he was really young, and that's something that I feel like a lot of the stuff with his parents and just his own introspection of himself, maybe fear of death, that comes up a lot in his music around this time. It's just carry my mother's picture in my wallet, call it a dead weight. I mean, come on, bro. That is just genius level bars right there.
I don't know what I do. People would be calling me crazy instead of IQ. Might you listen to it? I worked on this all night, dude. Spilling out my heart just to get on your iTunes. Swept up like I'm in the middle of a typhoon and nothing's guaranteed. I know I might die soon. So hip-hop to me is more than smoking blunts and getting high.
So as you can imagine, after all that, I was super inspired, super emotional after hearing that. Like, I was not on this track at this point, right? He had all this recorded, and he showed me, and I was like, dude, I gotta lay something down, like, now. And just in raw emotion, I just, like, freestyled, and he let me just intro the track, and I'm just, like, pouring out my heart in this freestyle. I'm stuttering a little bit, and it was just so raw that we just had to keep it.
I just ain't fearing it. I'll be smoking all that greenery until I get delirious. But hip-hop is bigger than green. It's bigger than drugs. It's bigger than all these fake wannabe motherfucking thugs. It's bigger than this. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you, God, Jesus, and threes. It's bigger than any motherfucker who ever said he was the king. Yep. It's bigger than every motherfucker who ever said they had bling. Yep. And bigger than every motherfucker who said he had anything. This is for every motherfucker who don't have anything. Tony. My man, you are now listening to the sounds of IQ and Tony Payola. We're about to tell you just how much this hip-hop means to us.
And I couldn't let that be it. I mean, I had to drop a verse on this thing. I mean, this song really, in retrospect, is my favorite song on this album, I think. I feel like I'm confident enough to say that and be sure enough to say that. And I had to put a verse on it. I mean, I was in love with this song. I was not letting this song go without me, pouring out my soul. And again, when you're feeling that, like when you make art, when you make music, write, I mean, poetry, I mean, I don't know, everything that you could think of that's a creative process. When you have that like feeling and you just have to put it out there, I mean, you have to just capture that. You have to let it go. And that's what I was feeling at this time after hearing everything that he did with it.
The HIP to the HOP, the great appropriator of Tony P. Hip-hop's the blood I bleed, it's the air I breathe. I was always writing rhymes in school, I didn't really care to read. Hip-hop is way more than getting blunts, brews, and bitches. Hip-hop is way more than getting bucks, loose, and riches. Way more than sagging your britches and rocking some ice. And for all you commercial rappers out there, yo, I got some advice. You say you a pimp, hottest clothes and hottest shoes, but you lay with a pimp, dog, you just some prostitutes. So I put the pen to the pad, I don't just bleed on the page. I make love to the mic and then skeet on his face. I'm so married to hip-hop, it might as well be my wife. At the same time, she like my mother, she say I'm grounded for life. So beat on her, cheat on her, I die to protect her. And if it's true what I said about her being dead, I'm about to resurrect her.
So to get back to the main timeline, we had just released the Stereo Killaz End of the Beginning album. We had the record release party. And really we don't stop writing. We're just into continuous making music. And we were already starting to like conceptualize the second album, which was going to be called 1202. Which was the address of the house that Adam, a.k.a. MCIQ, lived at, where we created everything. So we were already, like, in that headspace of, okay, we put out an album, already working on the next one. Weren't even focused on, let's memorize these songs, let's make sure we can perform these songs to the best of our capability. We just were about, let's just keep creating. And that's what I think me and him love to do even more than performing. And that's just where we were at. It's somewhere around this time when Adam records what would end up not only being the last song recorded on the laptop we were recording on, it would be the last song he recorded under the name MCIQ.
Who don't do what they supposed to or shut up when they told to. Speaks out against dads who have child support pending and are doing so many drugs they can't even remember it. I got a beef with police in general. Just because I smoke weed, they label me as a criminal. Isn't it animalistic how a man gets a badge and acts so cannibalistic? In his hands were filled with goddamn ballistics. In a hand was a pack of cigarettes, a napkin, and lipstick. And it's all written mouth is handling a business. Courts push back so you can't get a handle on your witness. Unethical lenience, package and ship to us is just another cluster fucking convenience. Our remorse for those who endorse what they send. Exclusive epidemic coming up at 10 in the sad lives that can't do shit but buy into it. Swimming in goose shit up to their eyes into it. Look, Tommy take the tallest Tonka, now he kicks it with the ballers and the Willy Wonkas. But in 80-32 when the rent is counted, who's gonna know Joe Blow was a bomb-ass accountant? Who's gonna know I was shouting at the top of my lungs wherever I'm at? These four walls got me feeling stuck. I'm just another Trump trying to get some play, cause in the end we ain't nothing but a face in the grave. I'm just another Trump trying to get some play, cause in the end you ain't nothing but a face in the grave.
Now at this point, this was by far my favorite song and like the best song I felt like he had done. And if I had thought that he was as good as me, giving me competition, slightly getting better than me towards the end of the recording of the End of the Beginning album, at this point he was better than me. There was, it was indisputable at this point. And when he comes in on the second verse, bro,
and if
I have to die today, I go quick. I don't need a diagnosis, I don't wanna know shit.
20 and lazy, he can't upkeep a mustache. Rides his bike to work, can he not afford a bus pass? Well, where does he go to school? What's his career? Rhymes word for a living? Haha, get out of here. Color me nothing and tickle me not. In my opinion, your opinion can mean diddly squat.
Now, there would be songs in the future where I would feel like envious of him. I would have some anger about, how good he was and how I felt like I was just not even on the same planet. This song, even though I felt like was so much better than anything I had done, it felt like he was being the voice of us, though. At the time, I'm 18, he's 20, and, we're going through that. We're out of high school, getting that, like, hey, you're not in college. What are you doing with your life? We have our friends that are in college. We have our parents kind of, like, questioning, like, where are my kids going right now? What are they doing? What are their plans? And we were, like, dead serious about this rap thing. I mean, we had, like, no doubt, at least I had no doubt, that we were going to make it, and this was going to be our career.
You take the lines and I'll take the bumps. I'll write the rhymes and you chew your gum. I'll do just fine with or without you. It's through my mind, but it's all about you. And out of all of his homies, to this day he's remained the closest to his Sony. Him and his crew was sick of working for wages based off of whatever the minimum wage is at the time. Relax and rhyme, sit back and find I'm not the only jack in line with an axe to grind. Pass the time with an absent mind till somebody finds me. Give you the notion to turn me up or rewind me. Dirty and grimy, something she wouldn't stare at until she heard my vocals flowing over snare taps. And her loving is great, but her fighting is useless. Like why you gotta stir the water on a personal cruise ship? Q, man, he must not understand women, but trust has been equal amount of chance given. For every lost fight and slam door,
I don't know what to give you. No, you don't know what to ask for. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. This felt like my anthem. He was the one who wrote it, but I felt it. You know what I mean? So in the prior episode, you may recall that I mentioned one of Adam's roommates named Bob. And I said how, hold that thought. I'm going to come back to Bob later in the story. So this is where Bob comes back. Apparently, Bob had thought Adam was stealing weed from him. And one day, to get revenge, he stole Adam's laptop that had our recording software on it, everything that we were recording, everything. He didn't steal my mic and my recording equipment. So I guess he really was just aimed at Adam specifically. So long story short, we had no way to record there anymore. We had the recording equipment, but did not have a computer. So now we're like nomads. We have no home to record. And I would say that we took that time for granted, but we were constantly utilizing that space. I mean, recording all day and night. it was just constant. So we definitely got our money's worth out of it. I don't know if he feels that way after, his laptop getting stolen, but, I feel like we, at least as, a rap group, really put that thing through its paces. But we were now without a studio. What do we do? Like, how do we record or keep recording this new album, 1202, that we're starting to write? It also felt like, at this point, especially listening to like the last songs that Adam was writing and recording, he really was needing to do some soul searching. We're starting that process. And I hope he feels okay with me bringing this up, but he was adopted and he was really thinking about, or maybe even starting to pursue, the possibility of him getting in contact with his biological parents. So it did seem like at the time he was really going through a lot mentally and emotionally. And he just really needed to find himself. So one day he goes on this long walk. And he goes on this walk all day, all night. I mean, it was biblical. And speaking of biblical, in the middle of the night, he comes across this church off 10 Mile. And when there's nothing but darkness in the center of the universe, there's a bright sign that says, "Come hear the word of Reverend Benny Holmes." And he read that and he just must have connected to it. And he said, that is who I am. I am Benny Holmes. And so I had witnessed this metamorphosis of him just starting to rap, going from MCIQ, really just getting his footing, figuring out, the basics of what he was trying to do, to him now leveling up, going from his cocoon to a beautiful butterfly, a Benny Holmes butterfly, if you will. So to reverse and go back in the timeline a little bit, Adam, who is now Benny Holmes, had went to high school with somebody named Kyle Resto. Now, Kyle Resto is the son of legendary producer Luis Resto. This man has produced almost every Eminem album after Marshall Mathers LP. He's even done production work on the latest album. So they've been in touch and worked with each other consistently through the years. He helped produce Get Rich or Die Tryin'. He did, stuff with D12, Obi Trice, Jay-Z. I mean, he's got a gigantic resume. Dude has an Oscar, a Grammy. So just really, really big, really successful. And one day Adam is walking, in downtown Ferndale, and someone pulls up on him and says, "Hey man, you have a lighter." And Adam did look, part of the transition from MCIQ to Benny Holmes was him becoming a more rough and rugged looking individual. He went from just being a baby face with, his hair kept short and everything, to him fully growing a beard out, hoodies, jeans with holes in them when they weren't in style, like the whole kind of thing. Like, that's what his image was becoming. So he definitely looked like a dude with a lighter. So Kyle pulls up on him and he notices who he is. He's like, "Oh, you're, Adam so-and-so, right?" And he's like, "Man, I heard you rap and everything. I'm looking to, produce hip-hop music." Kyle at this point was historically just in rock bands, so he hasn't really messed with hip-hop, and it seemed like he really was trying to go that route. So he said, "Hey, hit me up, let's connect, and, we'll go in my studio, and we'll make some music." So when Adam comes back and tells me this, that Kyle Resto, son of Luis Resto, wants to record with us, produce our next album, and we're going to be recording at Luis Resto's house in his studio, I want to say that I would have been, ecstatic about it, but if you recall from me, like, explaining what my mindset was at the time, and even us naming our first album The End of the Beginning, because I was so positive that we were set to blow up and just be crazy successful, famous. I looked at it like, yeah, of course he wants to record with us. This is just part of the story, right? You know, we go there, we start recording, we make a great album, then we get a record deal. Like, this was not, like, in my head a question. This was not an if scenario. This is not a, maybe we'll just be recording, nothing will happen. I had zero doubt that we were going to become famous, and this was like the next step to that story. So we go there to record, and it was such a weird thing for me, because here we are in the home of Luis Resto. He has a $1 million studio at least. I mean, he had a soundboard that I think was like over $100,000, and that's just one piece of equipment. I mean, it was, it just like everything that was in there. I had never been in to a studio like this before, and the irony about the whole thing is right down the street, my mom, who's on Section 8 housing, living in an apartment, struggling with drug addiction, is living there. I mean, it's like within like a block, within like two block radius, you have my mom struggling with drug addiction on Section 8 housing, as in poverty as you can be aside from being homeless, which she had been before she lived there, to just walk a couple blocks and you're at Luis Resto's home, who has a pool in the backyard and a Mercedes and, a $1 million studio in his house and a Grammy and an Oscar. I mean, it was just that, if anything, was like the universe telling me how achievable this dream was. It was that. Like, literally, your destiny to fame and fortune can be a lot closer than you even think. And as Kyle is giving us the tour of everything, Kyle wasn't shy about who his dad was or his dad's success. He's taking us through the studio, talking about, how rare a piece of recording equipment is, how expensive it is. And, he takes us into the booth, and there's a few different microphones to choose from, but he's like, you know what, I'm going to pick this microphone. And he's like, this microphone 50 Cent recorded Get Rich or Die Trying on. This is the microphone Eminem used to record Eminem's show, an encore. And so he's like, this mic is a legendary mic. And he was just setting up the mood like that. Like, you guys deserve to be here. You guys have some big shoes to walk in, but you deserve to be here. And he was really, he really set up that vibe and that mood for us. So the first song that we end up recording at their studio is called Mr. AKA. And this is also the first song where Adam is now Benny Holmes.
It's Mr. Boston, fresh rhymes over funk beats daily. Gotta watch your back, it's Mr. Coming for your lady. Mr. Gunning at it, coming with it, come and get it if you want it. Mr. Flaunt it, Mr. Yes, I'm on it. Mr. Busting chairs over the back of the competition. Mr. Composition, I'm Mr. Man on a mission. I'm Mr. Moonshot. Mr. Shotty, call me Mr. Boomshot. Boom shakalaka, Mr. Boomshot. Mr. Pen, Mr. Paper, Mr. Sun and the Moon. Mr. Mother, Mr. Rev with the sun in the womb. Mr. Halogen, Mr. Leave you in them panicking. Mr. Better than you and your man and them. Mr. Gross Stunning, Mr. So Blunt and Mr. Fly Dude. Mr. Blimp, Mr. Siegel, Mr. IQ. Mr. Man of many poems. And if you read the new shit, it's Mr. Benny Holmes.
So the first thing that you may notice after listening to that is the difference of sound quality. And this was, Kyle was very novice at mixing, mastering, and that was part of the whole thing was, hey, I'm going to use you guys as guinea pigs while I learn production, hip-hop production. And so this is the first track that we recorded. This is him barely, knowing how to do certain things. And the sound quality from that to anything that I've played before in this show is night and day. I mean, it is just mind-blowing. And that's one thing I learned with having a good microphone is just going to record your voice naturally a lot better, and a lot of the equipment and stuff. I mean, things with recording are expensive for a reason. They make your job as a master engineer mixing a whole lot easier.
Everybody watch out, it is Mr. Sinister. Came to make out with your sister in front of the minister. Mr. I'm the shit, you'll never amount to this. Mr. Don't make sense, looking like a drowning fish. Mr. Pound his fist so angry and loud. Mr. Pops, one day I'll be making you proud. Mr. Class Clown, center of attention. Mr. I lost it all and need some redemption. Mr. Out his mind, on the ground screaming. Mr. Lost Soul finally found his meaning. You're all deceiving, and Mr. having no trust, cause it's Mr. Cut your throat for a pass on a bus. Mr. Fashion's a must, I gotta stay fresh, but I'm Mr. Can't afford something on sale at Payless. Mr. Impatient, like when's the day over? Some say Tony P, you could say Mr. Pay over.
So we were really feeling ourselves on this track, as you can tell. Confidence is at an all-time high for me, and I think him. He was not as honest about where his ego was at this time, but based on like how he was rapping, there's no way dude was not, his ego was not being stroked, and, he was not feeling himself at this point. I mean, he was not a very braggadocious guy outside of music. You wouldn't hear him talk about how great he was ever at this time anyway. But, yeah, I mean, I don't buy that he was not, really, really feeling himself at this point. And so we come in with the third verse.
Mr. Catastrophic at a lobby, Mr. Troublesome. Mr. If you got some drama, I would love me some. Mr. Don't say my name, it is Mr. to you. Mr. Hot, 10 years I'll be so richer than you. Mr. You don't like him great, then you better fight him. Mr. I love you, but not enough to become an item. Mr. Get all his ideas out of his bong rips. Mr. Think with the wrong head and talk to the wrong lips.
And that ended up being like one of my favorite bars I've ever written. Even to this day, which, may say more about me than it says about the song. But I just love that bar. I love that line.
Mr. Horse of a different color, Mr. Brother from another mother, Mr. None other than Mr. Medication, Mr. Meditation, Mr. Never hesitating, Mr. Never waiting, Mr. Never patient, ever clever man. Mr. Time and a half, Mr. I'm in the back, Mr. Thinking like I'm in the last, Mr. Look at me now, Mr. Drop out, Mr. Cop out, Mr. Teacher throw your book at me now.
So this time becomes very conflicting for me internally, because on one hand, my ego is on like this crazy accelerated high. I mean, it is through the roof, unreachable, the size of a supernova. I mean, nobody could tell me anything. I would be talking to my friends. I would be talking to my dad, and my dad would, do his thing like, hey, you got to start figuring out what you're doing in life, everything like that. And I would look at him like, this fucking idiot. Do you have any idea where I was at, where I've been, who I've been recording with? I was at Louis Resto's house. I was in his studio. Oscar winner, Grammy Award winner. Like, what are you talking about? What am I doing with my life? I mean, I was offended, that he would even have the audacity to even question me. But of course, I think at this point, I didn't have a job. If I did, it was like working at Burger King or something super part-time, not a lot of money. So he had every right as a parent to ask me that and be concerned because, you could be recording with Elton John, but if you don't have anything to show for it, then it really doesn't matter. But that's just where my ego was at the time. Now, at the same time, I'm seeing Adam just explode in terms of talent. I mean, where I thought we were at the same level in the beginning of making our first album, at this point, you know, like I said, we weren't on the same planet. I mean, this dude was leagues ahead of me. And not only his ability to rap and skill level with wordplay and flow, but also just song concept. I mean, the dude was just cranking these amazing tracks out. So you have my ego super high because I'm there, right? I'm recording in Luis Resto's house. But then I'm noticing how much more talented Adam has become than me. And this creates like a tornado inside me because it's like, no, we are supposed to be at the same level. We're supposed to go through this together. And when I'm noticing how, like, you know, how he's just jumped leaps and bounds over me, it's like I start having this, like, I'm feeling left behind feeling. Now, in his defense, I don't think he ever purposely made me feel that way. He never said anything to me about it. He never said, hey, I'm just way more talented than you now. You know, he never said anything to make me feel like I was less than. But clearly it was happening, and I noticed that even though we were still recording our stereo Killaz songs, there were still a lot of songs we were recording with me and him. There was a lot of solo songs that Kyle was recording with him. And, you know, I think in their defense at the time, they were also like, you know, Adam can just be here more frequently. You're not here as often. And, you know, I had other stuff going on. I was working a part-time job. You know, so whatever the case was that they were saying was the reason he was recording more solo songs. Nonetheless, he was recording more solo songs. And these songs were amazing. So I can't be mad at the songs, but I was like starting that envious feeling that I said I didn't have earlier on. This was the first time this was starting to kind of come up in my soul a bit.
She watches the TV screen, he just interrupts. He would love to see her, but she never keeps in touch. He says he's gonna leave her, but she knows he never does. So when he calls her in the evening, she just doesn't pick it up. She sees it as harmless, he believes she's heartless, though they both know it was over before it started. Kept her heavenly garden, heavily guarded with heavy artillery for anybody ready to cross it. Tossed in the moats of TiVo TV shows, and the souls of those who have tried to go too close. Most of her men friend joke and smoke in hopes of having her to hold and tote back to they folks, though most of her girlfriends act like they never spoke and show signs of resentment anytime they get close. With remote traces of thinking she's a bit of a low down dirty. She's the new addicted, futuristic, too sophisticated lady, driving him crazy lately. He must admit, if it gets any closer to these old familiar places and faces he's grown accustomed to, then this is where he'll sit. It's a little discouraging when her and him having as much as kissed on the lips. This is looking like a case of
Mistaken emotion. Why don't we just make like a couple and split
They should split this now
before it gets out? You know, and I remember when he recorded that, like, part of me especially starting to have these like feelings of him just exceeding me and not really needing me anymore. It almost subconsciously felt like that song was about me, even though I don't think it was. But with Adam, especially when he became Benny Holmes, he really started digging deep with the metaphors to where you would listen to a song and on the surface it might be about, you know, a car ride on a sunny day, but really it's about how, you know, he has trauma from some girl that wronged him 10 years ago. So it's like you just didn't know with him. And this, you know, this was kind of the beginning of him starting to write like that. So he's making these amazing songs, but nothing really tops Home Cooking. When he made Home Cooking, that song is just so amazing. And I think out of all the things that we recorded, it felt like this was the song that really got the attention of Kyle's dad, Luis Resto.
Walking into his parents' room, ashamed of what he's about to do. No idea they've known for a while what he's been up to. Sneaking a 20 for gas money, hops in his ride while his parents are at the family therapist. He's a walking embarrassment. Now 17, stealing magazines from 7-Eleven, thinking he's impressing everyone around him. Fist pounding and shit. Parents confront him, but he never gets grounded, which in the end is probably worse off for the kid. Hurt as it did as a parental unit, they decide they lost the influence, and one night discussed kicking him out. Indifferent about sitting it out, they wanted to get him out now, so they made up some bullshit reason to get him out of the house. Now he's confused, lost and bruised, aloof, and set on the loose. Walking the city streets, keeps drugs in his shoes. Stays out all day and stays up all night long. Stop to sit on a park bench and write this song. If you can't put up with me, promise you won't forget me. If we never speak again, say that you're gonna miss me. Tell me goodbye for the last time. Remember me for my truths, forgive me for my lies. If you can't stay with me, say that you're gonna pray for me. I will faithfully wait for the day that we return to the house that I once grew up in. Love and home cooking. First time she saw him.
So now we're at the end of summer, and Kyle, told us in the beginning, and again, in my head, because of my ego and selective hearing, I don't register all the information. I kind of pick and choose what piece of information that I like to keep. I forget all the rest. I don't care about that bullshit. But in the beginning, Kyle let us know, hey, in the fall, I'm going off to Colombia. This is a summer thing. I'm doing it to, help learn, help teach myself the basics of recording hip hop, mixing, mastering, producing hip hop beats. And he was, upfront with us about that. He never said, hey, we're going to make this great album. We're going to submit it to my dad, who's going to give it to Jimmy Iovine, and then you guys are going to get a record deal. Like, that was never the expectation he set up. But in my head, that was the expectation. So we're approaching, the end of summer. It's the last time we're in the studio. And I just, I felt like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I'm probably never going to be in this house again. I'm never going to be in the studio again. I'm never going to be within within a arm's reach of Luis Resto, who has, a Grammy and an Oscar in his office that's collecting dust like it's just like a bowling trophy. I'm never going to be here again. This is I need to make a move. I need to do something. And just as an ambitious person, I just pulled Kyle aside and I said, look, I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I don't want this to sound like I'm ungrateful. But, we are really trying to get our music out there. And, is there any chance that, you could give this music to your dad and help it get to the right place so we can, try to get this in the right ears and hopefully, move forward, move to the next steps. And Kyle, he really did not like that. He really did not want to be associated with his dad in terms of music-wise. I don't mean personally. I think they are very close, father and son. But he wanted to make it on his own merit, and that's, completely respectable. He didn't want to be a Nepo baby, I suppose. But it did put me in a bad position because you're kind of in this hey, you're so close, but the person who may be the connecting piece to you and your dreams is kind of no, I want to be I want to have the underground struggle. I don't want to take the easy way that's in front of me. And again, very commendable. But to me, fuck, dude. I guess I have to keep being a struggle rapper because you want to be a struggle producer when you're not really living that life. So that was a big frustration. I think me and him kind of, butted heads, and that kind of severed his and my relationship. And, Adam wasn't happy with me either because he really was, I think, in it for the ride. He never wanted to push people in the sense of putting himself out there in the sales position or the politicking and the, shaking hands and kissing babies. That was never who he was. And I think he felt like, dude, why the fuck would you, bug Kyle about that? But I felt like I didn't really have a choice. I felt like if any of us are going to try to make a move, it's got to be me. And you know what they say, a closed mouth never gets fed. So if you want something, you have to ask for it. And it just, it all fell apart. And when he left, when it was like the end of that session and the end of that day, I just felt my heart fall out of my chest. Like, man, my ego was through the roof because I felt like this was it. This was the moment to lead us on the path of getting a record deal, of becoming famous, going on a nationwide tour. Like, it all felt so real to me. And to have it all just pulled away like nothing, I mean, I crashed. I mean, this was the beginning of my downfall.